Now part of the Darkcast Network. Welcome to Indie Podcasts with a dark side. In today's episode, we're talking about an ex-police officer / ex-school officer who shot himself while on the run with his 1-year-old son after shooting his ex-wife and his teenage girlfriend. Today, we're talking about the case of Elias Huizar right now on Love and Murder. Welcome, lambs. Welcome to a new episode of Love and Murder, your weekly true crime podcast telling you cases of heartbreak that turn to homicide. I am your host, Kai, and in today's episode, we're talking about a case that has so many twists and turns in it that you're going to think you were on a roller coaster. And then after that, I totally want to hear your thoughts on this case from beginning to end. Before we begin, I want to say that this episode and all my episodes are sponsored by my lambs in Patreon, patreon.com/Love and Murder. Also, be sure to subscribe to Love and Murder right now while you're listening so you don't miss a case. If you're new here, then listen to the case first. And then if you like me, go ahead and subscribe. Also, if you didn't know, you can also subscribe on our Patreon so you don't have to hear intros like this one or commercials. We get right into the heart of the story. You get case extras. So like this case, there's videos, there's so many pictures, there's so much. So you get that in the Patreon and you'll be a sponsor of Love and Murder. Patreon.com/Love and Murder. In the meantime though, grab your butts. Grab your BJ's apple juice, murderandlove.com/BJ's for $30 off of your first year's membership. And let's get into some Love and Murder. Elias Huizar, who at the time of this case was 39 years old, started his career in law enforcement in 2013 when he joined the Yakima Police Department in Yakima, Washington. Now, two things. First thing, this is Washington State. So if you're not from the U.S., you know we have Washington, D.C., but we also have Washington State. Washington State is above California. So this is in Washington State. And also, I want to say that they say his name different ways. So on the news, I heard both Elias and Elias. So I don't know which one it is. I'm just going to stick with Elias. I say this because a lot of people like to say, hey, Kai, you're not saying that name right. I looked it up this time. This is why I don't look it up, because 5 different people will have 5 different ways of saying the name. It's not that I don't care. It's because I don't know which one to choose. So I'm going to stick with Elias, but I did hear Elias and Elias. I don't know which one it is. Moving on. Elias worked as a school resource officer at Washington Middle School in Yakima. He had that position for about 18 months. If you're like me and you have no idea what an SRO is, according to edweek.org, a school resource officer is a sworn law enforcement officer with arrest powers who works either full-time or part-time in a school setting. Nearly all SROs are armed and most carry other restraints like handcuffs as well. I'd never heard of that before, so I figured there might be people out there who hadn't heard of that before either. So I looked it up. So he worked as an SRO and he had this position for about 18 months until some of his interactions with students became concerning to the people he worked with. This started an investigation. So basically what happened was in March of 2019, allegations started coming out that Elias was involved in an inappropriate relationship with a 6th grader named Angelica Santos. And at this time, this 6th grader was only 11 years old. Like, it started as this rumor where students started saying that they thought that Mr. Huizar, because that's what they're going to call him, was having a sexual relationship with Angelica. They said that Angelica was posting on her Snapchat about dating Mr. Huizar. And at first students thought it was she was just talking, it was a joke. Then some students said that 2 months after that, Angelica told them that she had sex with him, with Mr. Huizar, at school, and that she would spend time at his house. This is concerning, so they went and told adults. I guess at first when she was like, yeah, I like him, whatever, I want to be with him, whatever, they were just like, you're crazy. And, they didn't tell anybody. maybe they thought she was lying. She's just, trying to be an adult or whatever. But then when she started saying, yeah, I had sex with him and I would chill at his house, then they were like, okay, this joke has gone on a little bit too long and a little bit too far and ill. And so they went and told adults. So these allegations prompted an investigation by the state attorney general's office. The investigation lasted 9 days. They were able to get screenshots of the Snapchat conversation from Angelica's friends, and it showed where she made these claims. For instance, quote, I kind of want to slept with him, but I don't want to get pregnant. This is what she wrote. Are you freaking kidding me? A 6-year-old saying I want to sleep with him, but I don't want to get pregnant? Oh, boggles my mind. And I know she's 11. I'm saying 2 and 6 and everything like that. She's 11, but still, she's 11 in 6th grade, where you should be wondering about fractions. And also said that Angelica said that Mr. Huizar would take her to school, restaurants, and his house. So the lead investigator, senior investigator Bradley Graham, talked to the school's leadership, like management of the school. He also talked to Angelica's grandmother and her pastor and her mentor. And by the time everything was said and done, he had also spoken with 11 students and had 11 handwritten statements about what they had heard. The reason why he spoke with Angelica's grandmother was because that's where she lived. She didn't live with her parents. She lived with her grandmother. So that's who he spoke with. Now, during all of these interviews, most people, the adults, not the kids, the adults, said that Angelica had a history of basically lying, making up tall tales, fabricating stories, whatever you want to call it. They were calling her a liar. The youth director of her church also told the investigator about a story where Angelica had told people at the church that she had a son. And, obviously they know that's not true. And another person at the church came out and said, quote, she does that, meaning she lies a lot. Some of her classmates doubted that the rumor was true because, he's like 80. And her grandmother said that she doesn't spend any time outside of school with Mr. Huizar. That's not even something that happens. She did say that Angelica would follow Mr. Huizar around at school. She would follow him around a lot, and she just figured that was her favorite teacher. But she has never seen Angelica and Mr. Huizar together outside of school. Later, upon speaking with Angelica herself, she denied that she had any relationship with Mr. Huizar, and she said, I didn't even write any of these stuff. She said the other girls made up the rumors to, quote, cause drama. And when she was asked about the Snapchat, they're like, well, we have these screenshots here. She said, no, I didn't write that. My account was hacked. I didn't even have a password to my Snapchat anymore. So the investigator was like, okay, are you sure? And she said, absolutely. It's not me. This is all a misunderstanding. I didn't do any of this. So then the investigator didn't stop there. He went and talked to the principal and the assistant principal, and they all said, no, Mr. Huizar is an amazing SRO. The children love him. We have no complaints about him. I don't know what's going on. So while this investigator is still investigating, the Yakima Herald Republic, which is the newspaper, wanted to conduct an in-person interview with the principal, the teachers, Mr. Huizar, the adults. I don't think they wanted to talk to the minors because I don't really think that's morally right. So I can't imagine they wanted to talk to the minors, but more than likely they wanted to talk to the adults involved. However, they were denied with a message saying that the school wants to, quote, ensure consistency and clarity in our message. No one identified has reported any behaviors by Huizar that were considered concerning regarding sexual contact with minors. So that was it. The investigators completing his investigation because, there's these Snapchats, but the victim themselves or the supposed victim themselves said that, I didn't do this. So there's nothing more they can do. No charges were filed. However, Elias did violate Yakima Police Department policies because when they were doing another internal investigation on him dealing with this same thing, they found out that he knew about the rumors and he didn't report it. So he knew about the rumors for months before it was even reported to the police department, and he didn't say anything. Quote, he has an obligation, so does the principal, under state law as a mandatory reporter to report an allegation of sexual assault by a child, even if he's the suspect. So that's what I disciplined him for. This was a quote from Yakima Police Chief Matthew Murray. So Murray actually wrote up the reprimand, but as per the union department's contract, he didn't complete it in the time frame that was required. So what happened was he did end up moving Elias from the Washington Middle School, but because he didn't file the paperwork in time, it literally wasn't entered into the system. So Elias was still allowed to work as a Yakima Police School resource officer. I think because they actually didn't find anything, he would have still been allowed to work as an SRO. I don't think it was an issue that Murray didn't get everything in on time. However, Murray did say, quote, I wouldn't let him go back to that middle school because that wouldn't make any sense. It's also difficult for me to say you can't be an SRO when we had unfounded allegations of sex crimes. So I put him in a different school. So yeah, like I was saying, they didn't have any evidence. They spoke with everybody, including the girl's grandmother. Nobody's saying, this is true. They have any inkling of this going on, and everybody's saying the little girl's lying. So, you can't really blame the police department. They did their due diligence. So in this situation, you cannot blame the police department. Even if he got the paperwork in on time, it wouldn't have made a difference. But he did not send him back to that middle school. So, he's trying his best. So that was 2019. In 2020, he got a divorce from his wife, Amber Rodriguez, who he at the time shared 2 children with. Then in 2021, he resigned from the YPD. So let's get into his resignation. In 2021, there was an internal investigation into Elias after learning of, quote, conduct that occurred off duty involving a family household member. The incident in question? Well, Elias was in Richland, Washington, standing outside of Wiley Elementary School. In the video investigators looked at later, it showed him taking off his jacket, balling up his fist, and making these gestures like he was ready to fight his father-in-law. So basically, from the looks of this surveillance video, it looks like right outside an elementary school, he's trying to fight an older man. During the investigation, they found out that this incident became so heated that the principal had to step in between Elias and his father-in-law. Then the principal later called 911, and 3 squad cars had to come out to the scene to deal with this. In trying to find out why this happened while the police were there, they found out that it was a custody dispute issue. Basically, he was saying that the children were supposed to go to him today. Well, the one child that they were going to pick up at that school, that child was supposed to go to him today, but the father-in-law was there saying that the child was supposed to come with them today. So they were supposed to go to the wife. So that's what that whole thing was about. Who's the child supposed to come with? So you do all this outside of the child's school, embarrass the crap out of the child, on top of whatever they're already going through because their parents just went through a divorce. This is what you do? Like, you could have just let the father-in-law take them, because the father-in-law more than likely is only following what the mother said. So let the father-in-law take the child. Yes, you'll be angry. I understand that, but don't cause a scene right outside your child's school. Let the father-in-law take the child. Then you come back, you call your ex-wife and say, hey, this was my weekend. And then y'all could work it out from there. But don't stand in front of the school embarrassing the child, arguing with the father-in-law who's only carrying out the orders of his daughter, and pulling off your jacket and looking like you're about to fight an old man. Like, what is wrong with you? So this was an incident that happened, but this wasn't the only incident. Basically, the police department was getting tired of hearing about Elias Huizar. On March 10th, 2021, he had called 911 to accuse Amber of forging medical documents. On March 19th, he had called 911 to accuse a family member of sending inappropriate text messages to a minor. On April 7th, he had called 911 to accuse his father-in-law of threatening to shoot him. So he's just calling 911 and coming up with all these allegations. And so they were just like, here's Huizar again. Now he looks like he's outside of school trying to fight this old guy. So while all this is going on and they're doing an investigation on him, they can't even interview him. Why? Because he was on leave, paid leave at the time. And when investigators are asking this department, why is he on leave? His department wouldn't tell them why he was on leave, but they said something to the effect of it could be due to a surgery, but then again, it could not be due to a surgery. Who's to know? So they're just playing this weird game. They wouldn't say why he was on leave, which that I don't understand. If this guy is constantly calling 911 and causing problems, he had why would you cause these problems? Just tell them he's on leave. This is why he's on leave. Unless it is illegal for them to tell, but it's a police investigation. I can understand if it was somebody, just a random person called and was like, hey, is Elias there? And they're like, no, he's on leave. Oh, why is he on leave? That's understandable. But this is a police investigation to police. So it's if you were doing your own investigation, you would want answers. So why are you playing these games? So they were like, fine, all right, whatever. So instead of pushing the subject, they went and they interviewed other witnesses like Amber, the father-in-law, the staff at the school, and the West Richland Police Department officers that had arrived on the scene. So they're trying to get stuff done. Then, finally, in October 2021, they were able to interview him. That's when they found out that this person, I was going to say a bad word. I was going to say this MFer, but that's when they found out that this person had moved to Richland, and he didn't even tell his managers, superiors, whatever you would call them, the captain. I don't know what you would call your superiors in a police department, but he didn't tell them that he had moved. So it was you're supposed to tell us when you move. And he was like, yeah, I understand, but I moved here to be closer to my wife and my children. So that's why I moved. I'm sorry I didn't tell you. I didn't think it was going to be a big deal. And then that whole fight over the custody, I was kind of up to here with everything because my father-in-law just wasn't happy that I even moved over there. So it's kind of a touchy thing. So when they talked to the father-in-law, he said, yeah, we didn't want him to move. Actually, Amber had, quote, put her foot down and told Huizar it was over and not to waste his money buying a house near her. This is what the father-in-law said. So that was the entire investigation. They started wrapping it up and closing it down. And in the notes, in the closing notes, it was determined that even though 3 internal policies were broken, nothing currently under the investigation actually added up to a crime. So there's nothing to actually go forward and do. However, suspicions started arising and hairs on the back of people's necks started going up because when they did interview Amber, they found out that when she met Elias, she was 17 years old. He was 24 at the time, and they met because he was her wrestling coach in the high school. This was before he joined the Yakima police force, but still, does that kind of sound familiar? So you were in a school and you met this young girl. Didn't you just have something going on, like an investigation going on in another school where people claim you met another young girl? I mean, I know 17 and 11 totally different ages, but it's just, okay. So with that, they kind of put the investigation on hold because they wanted to investigate this. So when they went to the Union Gap, Washington Police Department and said, can you investigate these allegations that his ex-wife at this time was 17 when he met her and that he was her coach at school? They said, sure, we'll investigate this. But when that department went to talk to Amber, she didn't want to press charges against him or anything because she didn't want to face retaliation from Elias if he ended up being criminally charged. Quote, she expressed what appeared to be a genuine concern about Huizar being arrested and what that would do to her safety. She mentioned often that Huizar is not of sound mind, has told her he hears voices, was short-tempered, and controlling of her actions. So the police said, okay, and went back and told the Yakima Police Department that I was shrugging my shoulders so you didn't see me. But that's when they told him, I don't know. And so there's nothing more they can do. So they went back to closing the investigation because, again, nobody's coming forward. Nothing. They can't move forward with anything. And although in their notes they put that this did not constitute grounds for immediate termination, they did say that he would be ineligible for rehire with the YPD. So if he ever quit, if he was terminated, he would never be able to be rehired with the YPD. But before they were able to close the investigation, Elias said, take this middle finger, I quit, and my last day is February 14th, 2022. Then he applied to be a substitute teacher at the Richland School District. So he was hired there. He started in the 2021-2022 school year. So, he ended his role in the beginning of 2022. So school would have just started in August 2021. Wait, this is Washington State. You know what? I don't know when school starts on the West Coast. So in the South, in most places in the South, school starts in August. In most places on the East Coast, school starts in September. I have no idea when school starts on the West Coast. So we'll say school started August, September of 2021. He quit February of 2022. So he was still there for the 2021-2022 school year. And then he was there again as a substitute for the 2022-2023 school year. And even though he had all those investigations going on, the Richland School District didn't even see any red flags because remember, nothing was actually entered in. He quit before they finished closing out the case. And he probably, between that time that he quit and he got the job, it probably wasn't even entered into the system yet. So he knew what he was doing. And then the first case, there was nothing that they could move forward with. So there was nothing there. So the school didn't even know that he had all this investigation on him. And when Richland School District called Franklin Middle School, remember where he was an SRO, asking them how good he was over there, they described him as, quote, very good and, quote, excellent. So they didn't even tell them that there was a previous investigation because, nothing came of it. So again, can't blame them really. I know in certain cases you can blame both the police department and any other adults that's involved, but this one you can't really blame anybody because they did their investigation and nothing came of it. At least in my opinion. Maybe I'm wrong, maybe I'm missing something, so if I'm missing something and y'all disagree with me, let me know in the comments below. So while all this is going on, the situation between Elias and Amber was getting worse. So much so that she started working as a paraprofessional at the William Wiley Elementary School where their oldest son was going to school. She did that so she can keep a close eye on him so that nothing between Elias and him would occur. Now in February 2024, something else came to light about Elias. It came out that he had given alcohol to 2 minors because one of the girls who was 17 at the time had called police on this incident. This 17-year-old girl that called the police on this incident was actually Elias's girlfriend, Angelica. Do you remember Angelica Santos? The 11-year-old. Yes, she's 17 now. Yes, the 11-year-old. And where nobody knew what was going on, she said it was all a prank. He denied everything. Now what, 5 years later? Their boyfriend and girlfriend? So anyway, she called the police on him because she had a friend over, which the friend was 16 years old. She had a friend over and she said that He gave them both alcohol, and then I guess they got too drunk and both of them fell asleep. She then went on to say that she woke up to Elias sexually assaulting her unconscious 16-year-old friend. So the 16-year-old woke up during the assault. They were both like, what are you doing? So then they grabbed Angelica's 10-month-old baby and left. So he's there with a 17-year-old, a 16-year-old, and a 10-month-old baby. And while the 10-month-old baby is there, I guess his 17-year-old girlfriend is there, he then tries to have sex with the 16-year-old. What is going on? Just, can somebody please explain to me what's going on here? What did I just read? So when they ran out, he ran out following them to another car. They jumped into their car. He jumped into another car, and they're driving around looking for police. While they're looking for the police to report this incident, he's following behind them, trying to get them to like, look, let's stop. Let's talk about it. It was an accident. I didn't know what I was doing. I tripped and fell. So finally he let them go. He went back to the house. They found police. Police came to arrest him for this incident. He ran back in the house and barricaded himself inside. So I guess, he answered, hey, yeah, we're here for blah, blah, blah. He closed the door, barricades himself inside, and a SWAT team was called in. Then on February 3rd, after a 3-hour standoff, so I guess this happened on February 2nd, then on February 3rd, after a 3-hour standoff, he ended up being arrested and charged with second-degree rape, furnishing alcohol to minors, and third-degree rape tied to his relationship with the teen. So finally, between 2019 and 2024, finally, something happened. Finally, he's arrested. Finally, they have evidence that they can put him in jail for now. So after they put him in handcuffs, put him in the squad car, police went into the house and they noticed something curious. It looks like he was trying to clean the sheets that one of the teenagers had been sleeping on previously. So it's like, why were you trying to clean those sheets, huh, Elias? In addition to that, it turns out, as they're speaking with everyone involved, that Elias had gotten Angelica pregnant when she was 15 years old, while he was still employed. So by this time, he's a substitute teacher at her school. Why did you go to her school? This is very interesting. You were at her school as an SRO when she was 11. Now you're a substitute teacher again at her school while she's in high school? Interesting. Angelica claims that they had reconnected on Facebook after he reached out to her. And when that happened, they started a sexual relationship, and then their child was born a year later. So then, like I said, he was arrested, and then on February 9th, just a couple days after he had been arrested, Amber went and filed a protection order against him. She told the court that this was the second time she had applied for one, actually, and that she, quote, believed our children are in danger if the respondent is allowed visitation. So she asked for an immediate protection order to be placed against him, an immediate weapon surrender from him. She also told the court that during their marriage, he was emotionally and verbally abusive towards her. She also said that multiple times on multiple occasions, he would have sex with Angelica right in front of their 2 children. So, they're sharing custody. So whenever the children were at his house, this is what's happening. And she said that also while the kids are there, him and Angelica would be having these like, quote, explosive arguments. And the arguments sometimes ended in violence. How does she know all of this when she's not at the house? Well, whenever the kids would come back, they would tell her what was happening. Which is like, come on now, dude. Are you serious? She also told the court that in 2021, he had taken the children and enrolled them in a school without her permission, and then she couldn't find her kids. She didn't see them for 3 weeks. Then she finally found them and brought them home. She said that since her divorce in 2020, he has been constantly and without fail harassing her all the time. She also told them that he suffered from PTSD, he suffered from insomnia, major depressive disorder, alcohol use disorder, and some type, it says unspecified personality disorder. So this is all that's going on with him. So the court took her allegations seriously and set up a custody arrangement for March 14th. So they were supposed to come back to court and they would discuss custody. On February 22nd, this one says in the reports, unnamed minor put out a sexual assault protection order against Elias. So it just said unnamed minor. So I'm guessing it's either Angelica or her 16-year-old friend. But it never said a name, so I'm just guessing here. So remember now he's in jail. So finally he gets his pretrial on April 4th. At the pretrial, his lawyer entered a not guilty plea on behalf of his client, which, of course, I mean, what did you think? He was going to take responsibility for his actions? Are you crazy? No. He said, not guilty, Your Honor. Clearly, as you found out 5 years ago, this girl lies. Why was she in my house with my kid? I mean, next question, Your Honor. The prosecution issued a no contact order, making sure that Elias wouldn't attempt to contact or be within 1,000 feet of the teenagers. So I guess it was both Angelica and her friend. So he's not allowed to be within 1,000 feet of their school, their work, their houses, or areas within children's activities on the whole. Then they set his trial date for April 22nd, 2024. So he was allowed to post bail because he was in jail on a $200,000 bond. So he was allowed to post bail, and the conditions of that bail was that he stayed away from both of the underage girls and he didn't drink alcohol. To which he said, "Sir, yes, sir," saluted them. "Sir, on my Boy Scout honor, Your Honor, you can trust me." And he was out. Then 2 weeks later, on Monday, April 22nd, you thought I was going to say he was going to his trial, right? No, because that's the date of his trial. No. He's supposed to be in court, but Wiley Elementary School in West Richland ended up being placed on lockdown due to a shooting in the area. The shooting? Well, around 3:20 p.m., Elias shot the then 31-year-old Amber outside of the school she worked in. Remember, she worked in the school with her son to keep an eye on her son. She was actually in the process of trying to go home at that time, like picking up the son, let's go home, let's go get your sister, or I don't know if it's a girl, the other child. And Elias pulled up and shot her. This shooting was actually witnessed by their son and several other children as well. Apparently, he'd shot Amber, she fell, and even though she was down and not moving, he continued to shoot her 7 more times for a total of 8 shots. After this, he drove away in the car. People saw there was a baby in the car. There's a 1-year-old in the car. So he has his 1-year-old son with him while he's doing this. So 911 was called, of course. And when they got to the scene, they found Amber, unfortunately, already dead with gunshot wounds to her head and torso. Investigators then recovered 8 .40 caliber bullet casings from the area. And while searching for him, they got a search warrant for his house. When they got there, got the door open, and they stepped inside, they were greeted by something they were not expecting. A dead body of another woman. Quote, "The victim found in the residence in West Richland was Angelica Santos, the suspect's 17-year-old girlfriend." Turns out, Elias had first stabbed Angelica, which she lived with him, and then taken their 1-year-old to Amber's job. So he's just doing all of this in plain sight of all of his kids. And remember when he was arrested for assaulting the 16-year-old girl, and then they had taken the 10-month-old and ran out of the house? Yeah, that 10-month-old was his son. Yeah, his son with her. So an Amber Alert was sent out, and it seemed like he was traveling south. Quote, "He was reportedly driving a 2009 Toyota Corolla with Washington plates, and as of early morning hours, had been believed to have entered into Oregon." Police thought he was on his way to Mexico, actually. In the meantime, police are still investigating the murder. An autopsy was conducted on Angelica by the Benton County Coroner's Office, and it showed that Angelica had been killed by multiple stab wounds. On Tuesday at around 12:40 a.m., a cashier at the Portland Plaid Pantry reported seeing Elias buying a drink, and he did see that there was a child in the backseat of the car, just like the Amber Alert said. So now they know where he is. So around 2:20 p.m., the Oregon State Troopers set up like a roadblock down I-5 going southbound, and they ended up seeing Elias driving his car that way. So they flashed their lights, made the whoop whoop sound, whatever, and he didn't pull over. That's when the high-speed chase started. Quote, Oregon State Police attempted to initiate and the vehicle fled, resulting in a high-speed pursuit, during which the suspect exchanged gunfire with law enforcement. Remember, lambs, all while the 1-year-old is in the car. So they're chasing him for about 25 miles, going pew pew either way, and speeds were even topping like 100 miles an hour. He hit multiple cars, stopped because he hit a car, turned around, exchanged gunfire, pew pew pew, and then peeled off again, only to later crash into a semi-truck further down the interstate because now there was traffic. So he ended up crashing into a semi-truck. He then turned the gun on himself and shot one round into his head. When police got to the car, they saw that he was dead. Quote, near milepost 197, just south of Coburg, the suspect crashed into a stopped commercial vehicle. The suspect's vehicle crashed and spun into the median, where it became immobile. As troopers contacted the suspect vehicle, the suspect died of a self-inflicted gunshot wound. Immediately, because now he's no longer a threat, they, go through the car because they're worried about the 1-year-old. And thankfully, the 1-year-old was unharmed. He was strapped into his car seat and he was fine. Quote, since the start, our goal has been simple, and that has been to bring Roman Santos home safely. He's the 1-year-old who was kidnapped, and we've done that. Roman is safe in the care of Oregon officials. He is doing well and being cared for. We are very, very thankful for that outcome. Police Chief Murray said, quote, I don't think being a police officer made him a predator of children. I also think he clearly was just deeply angry. Nothing about this is redeeming. So he killed Angelica and left his 1-year-old without parents. He also murdered Amber and left their 5 and 9-year-old without parents. So he left behind selfishly, like the freaking butthole he is, 3 orphaned children. You wanted to do what you wanted to do, but then didn't want to face the consequences of doing said deed. You were fine when everybody was saying that Angelica was lying. You were fine when nobody put 2 and 2 together and found out about when you married Amber or when you got with Amber. But when everything started coming out, your coward self was like, I'm going to take everybody with me and leave just destruction in my wake. I'm going to do this in front of my children. So now they have this seared into their brains for the rest of their life. I'm going to leave them orphans. I don't even have extra words to finish that statement. So anyways, it wasn't clear as to where the children were as of the last report that I saw. They're just orphans. Hopefully they are with their respective family members. The 1-year-old hopefully is with Angelica's, family, and the 5 and 9-year-old is with Amber's family, I'm hoping. And that is the case of Elias Huizar. What? Didn't I tell you it had so many turns in it? I told y'all. Did y'all have your seatbelts on so that you wouldn't get whiplash with this case? The twists and turns and the ups and downs, I can't. And I can't blame anybody except Elias himself, because the police tried to do their investigation, but there was nothing for them to go on. The school tried to do their investigation, but again, there was nothing for them to go on. And you're dealing with children, so they don't make the best decisions all the time. So even though you're saying, hey, did somebody do this to you? They're like, no, it was all a lie. They're kids. and whatever's going on in their head is going on with their head. So I can't really blame them. So literally the only person you can blame in this situation is Elias. Now, I could be wrong. Maybe y'all saw something I didn't see. So let me know, lambs, your thoughts about this case in the comments below. Do you agree with me? Do you agree with my assessment that you can't really blame anybody except Elias? Or do you think the police department or the school district is at fault somehow? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. And I'll also put out that poll question. I'll put out, who do you think is to blame? And the answers would be Elias, the police department, the school district, or all of the above. And that is all I have for you today. I just want to let you know that I did almost this entire episode while having the hiccups. Oh my God, I've never had to record an episode having the hiccups before. I don't know if you heard the change of the tone of my voice, but now my throat is raw. So my voice kind of changed a little bit. But I kept having to say stuff over and over because in the middle of a sentence, I would have a hiccup and then I have to repeat the sentence. So then it made it twice as long to record this episode, and it's going to make it twice as long to edit. The joys of being a podcaster. But you know what? I love y'all. So I keep going and I keep doing it because I love my lambs. Do it for you. I do it for the gram. Anyways, that is all I have for you today. Don't forget, we're always sharing our episodes with everyone we know and everyone we don't. So go ahead and share this with your best friend. Share it with your mom. Share it with your dad. That's everybody you know. And let's share it with everybody you don't. Go ahead and share it to a true crime subreddit that you're part of. And that is everybody you don't. And as I leave you on every full episode, say it with me now from the chest. It's all love and no murder, y'all. See you in the next episode. Bye.